Recently I was making a day of recollection, and for my prayer I was thinking about the resurrection of Jesus, and I was using this passage from the second letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians, chapter 1, verse 8 and following. He said, "We do not want you to be ignorant, brothers and sisters, of the affliction we experienced in Asia, for we were so utterly, unbearably crushed that we despaired of life itself. Why? We felt that we had received the sentence of death. But that was to make us rely not on ourselves, but on God, who raises the dead. He delivered us from so deadly a peril, and He will deliver us. On Him we have set our hope, that He will deliver us again. You also must help us by prayer, so that many will give thanks on our behalf for the blessing granted us in answer to many prayers." Now, St. Paul tells us that he went through so much affliction that he gets to the point of despair. You know what despair is? It's when you have no hope. It's when you feel that you can't go forward, when you feel like your life has lost all meaning and value in this world. Paul got to that point, he tells us. He's despairing of life itself. And you know, one of the tough things about this is this movement towards despair happens after he had experienced the love of Jesus. In that mysterious encounter he had with Jesus in his own life, it was after that he went through so much affliction and trouble that he got to the point of despair. You know, it'd be one thing to go through a despairing situation before you encounter the presence of Christ in your own life. But when you go to it after you become aware of the presence of Jesus in your life, it's kind of worse. Because you're like, what happened, Jesus? Where are you, Lord? Where's your power? Where's your love? I'm now going to this point where I feel like my life has failed completely. Well, the apostle gets to this sense of despair, which has like a double weight to him, because it has happened after his living experience of the presence of Jesus. And what does he do? Well, he does go to that point of despair, but he turns more to Jesus. He turns more to Jesus by prayer and by hope in Him, by faith in His resurrection, realizing that God is still in charge, God still loves him, and God raises the dead. Now, later on in this letter, Paul gives us more examples of his afflictions. He's been imprisoned several times, and he has done nothing wrong. He's done nothing to deserve his imprisonment. I remember when I was a little kid, I was in second grade, I got in trouble, but I didn't do anything wrong. There was a commotion in the classroom and all the kids were getting rambunctious. And I was standing by a bookshelf. I think I was looking at the Berenstain Bears, and there was a kid running around causing trouble. Well, the supervisor of us said, "Jason, stop running, you're getting out of here." And she took me and put me out in the hallway, in this dark, big hallway. I had to stand in the middle of the hallway for like an hour and do penance for what I'd done wrong. I'd done nothing wrong. I was innocent. This other kid was running around. But I kind of know what it's like for the Apostle Paul to get in trouble for not having done anything wrong. It's not pleasant, especially when you're a little kid. The first time you experience that, it is tough, something fierce. Well, that's one thing the Apostle Paul experiences, and a lot worse than I did. He's put in prison, he's got angry guards watching over him, and he don't know if he can get out. He's beaten many times. He's whipped 5 times. He's hit with rods 3 times. Once he was stoned. And these things happened to him and led him almost to death. He says 3 times he was shipwrecked, adrift at sea. He experienced danger from all kinds of people, including danger from false brethren, false brothers, false friends, which means there's more Judas Iscariots floating around in the church, even after Judas had died. And sleepless nights, because he has so much anxiety and fear, and justified fear in his own life. So he's got all of this trouble, and what does he do with it? He turns to his faith in God, more, not less. You know, we can experience similar things in our life journey. Maybe not the exact things, but our goodness can be destroyed by being treated wrongly when we're accused falsely or someone lies about us or twists the truth about us and gossips about us, that's like being put up in a prison that you can't get out of. You can be pushed around or bullied. One time I was in a school and they had these signs up that said no bully zone, which is a good thing, but there are bullies who are adults in the workplace and they bully people around all the time. You can experience that. That's like getting beaten the way the Apostle Paul was. Shipwrecked. Maybe we won't get shipwrecked, but our life can be shipwrecked. Can be shipwrecked by our own bad decisions. Can be shipwrecked by, this pandemic. Can be shipwrecked by the negligence or malice or weakness of others. Lost at sea. You ever get to the point where in your life you feel totally lost? No point of light anywhere? You can go through that. False brethren, false friends, people who pretend to be your friend and they turn out to be an enemy. They turn out to be fake friends. That's extremely painful. It was extremely painful for Jesus and also for the Apostle Paul. And all these things can conspire in a way to push us toward despair, to get us to feel that life has no value, that everything is worthless for us. What do? Well, let's be like the Apostle Paul. We got to remember the resurrection of Jesus. He truly rose from the dead. For Paul, the resurrection was not an idea. It was reality. Jesus truly is risen from the dead. And the thing about belief in the resurrection that can help us so much in these situations that can push us to despair is that Jesus in his resurrection conquered the worst. The worst thing that can ever happen to anyone has already been conquered by Jesus Christ in his resurrection. You know how sometimes when you go through tough times, you'll say to yourself, boy, this is the worst experience in my life. Well, it's not. The worst thing you could ever experience has already been experienced by Jesus. And it truly is the worst thing because he's the Son of God and he was put to death. And he was treated so horribly on the way to his death. The worst thing that can happen to you has already been conquered by Jesus in his own suffering, death, and resurrection. And that's why the Apostle Paul has this hope in God, this conviction that God will raise the dead. He feels like he's at the point of being dead, but he knows God will lift him up. God is real, and God will lift us up too. And what we have to do is, in the face of these situations that seem to come at us at one time or another, is we got to renew our faith in the Lord Jesus and in the power of his resurrection. This means that we have to renew our baptismal vows. We have to think about what those vows are, living for the Trinity, renouncing evil and renouncing sin. We've got to turn away from sin, we've got to pray. Daily prayer is so important to help us to live our faith in the resurrection. And so, brothers and sisters, if you, like the Apostle Paul, have or are currently experiencing situations that day by day are pushing you towards a sense of despair, don't give in to despair. You give in to faith. Give in to your faith in the Lord Jesus. He is risen as he promised. And because he is risen from the dead, he is our hope. And when you hope in Jesus, your hope will never let you down. God bless you.